now. All right, so I hope everyone has their robo snail pulled up. Today we're going to be doing the shell, and we're going to be doing a few other features involving sketches and some of these features that you see here, like the mirror and the pattern. I'm going to be up front. Your homework is going to be to kind of spookify your snail, as it were, make it kind of spooky. And I guess there's some inspiration. So here's the inspiration for your spooky snails. You can just turn the shell into like a pumpkin type of thing. You can add a pointy hat. You can, I guess, make a witchy snail if you want. You can, I just wanted to find like snails, not like a snail helmet. You could add feet if you wanted to, I guess. So yeah, you'll be allowed to do whatever you want with your snails. And I'm telling you this now because the first part of our lesson is going to be in how to make the shell sort of match the curvature of your snail and how to use things like the pattern, the mirror, and other features that'll be useful to you. So with that, I am going to start casting this again. So what we did last week was some very fundamental CAD work, mainly with how to extrude things and how to make cuts. And one of the things I want to focus on now is how to refine the tools that we learned last week, how to refine our sketches, how to make things a bit more, I guess, detailed. So with that, I'm going to start by selecting the right plane. And I am going to view normal to, that way I'm looking at that plane head on. This is going to be a really useful tool. So if you want to reference a certain plane or you want to reference a certain part of your snail, you're looking head on to that. And we're starting with this because we're going to start by making our shell. So click on the sketch tool. So yeah, so we're on this right plane and I'm going to select the right plane for the sketch. And I actually am going to start with the center point circle. We're going to be doing quite a bit of dimensioning here and just make it anywhere, just don't put it on the origin. So somewhere out here is totally fine. And I'll show you why. So I've mentioned to you before that if you have something off of the origin, you don't have to just define its length, you also have to define its position relative to the origin. So instead of just being able to drag this in and out to make it bigger and smaller, I can actually sort of drag it relative to the origin. And I'm going to put mine right about here. And I just want to get it into a position where it makes sense for the snail to have a shell. Now, again, we have this entire area right here that's just sort of clipping into the snail. We don't like that. Maybe when you modify your snails, we can have that, but for the purposes of what I'm about to show you, we're going to get rid of it. So one useful feature for that is going to be use project or convert. I'm going to click on that tool. And then I'm going to sort of reach over here. Oh, seeing these orange lines now, I'm sure. With the use, I can click on these individual lines, see how they turn dark orange. And you'll notice they're starting to turn black, and it's almost like they're appearing on the sketch itself. And I'm going to re-click on the button to exit. And now you'll notice that instead of just selecting, say, this entire face, you can actually select these individual segments because they are now part of your sketch. This is really useful if there's a specific part that you want to emulate the geometry of or emulate the features of, but you don't want the entire face or the entire object in your sketch. Does that make sense to everyone? Great. So now we actually do have some faces that we could extrude, but we don't really care about all these extraneous lines. So how do we get rid of them? We can use the cut tool. These scissors right here. And I'm going to have you zoom in and click on these line segments right here. And this one, again, highlight it, make sure it's turning the right color, and here. Do not trim any segments of the circle yet because we still need to define its size and its position, which we're going to do now. Don't worry if you missed the trim step. We're going to do some more trimming in a bit. So we're going to go to our dimension tool. And obviously, the first thing we need to define is the size of the circle. So does anyone remember how we might be able to do that? Yes? Exactly. So we're going to click on the circumference. And I'm going to pull it in right around here. Just keep it out of the way. And let's make that a 6-inch shell. And now we still need to define where exactly it is in space. You'll notice that I can still sort of move it around, even if I can't necessarily move or change the size of the diameter. So we're going to start with two different dimensions. If I click on the origin of the circle and the origin of the sketch, you'll notice that I can kind of go with this diagonal dimension right here, but I can also drag it all the way up and go with a horizontal dimension, or drag it to the right and come up with a vertical dimension. Which option or options do you think would be best to go with, and why? I'm glad that everyone's thinking about it. So again, we have a diagonal dimension, a horizontal, and a vertical. That's a good thought. So let's see what happens if we just do a vertical dimension for now, since that's where my mouse is at. And let's call this, let's call it 1 inch. So 1 inch vertically from the origin. Let's see if I can still move this around. Yeah, it looks like I can still move this to the left and right. So I think we are going to need more than one dimension. So let's do the dimensioning tool one more time. And this time we can create either a horizontal dimension or a diagonal one again. All right, so I'm going to create a horizontal dimension like this, and let's make this one 1 inch as well. So now we have fully defined the position of the circle, its radius, and where it is relative to the origin. So now we're going to go back to that trim tool and get rid of the excess bits of circle. So hover over the segment you want to delete, and then click here, and it'll get rid of the segment, but it'll still leave this shape fully defined. So yeah, generally I would say you want to save your trimming for last. That way you can fully define everything you need to define and then just get rid of the excess. But it can help to trim things a little early in case there's stuff that you really don't need for dimensioning, like those stray bits of arc that we had in the beginning that we weren't going to use for anything. Those you can delete early on if you want to. But the remainder of the circle we did need to keep. So once you're ready with the snail, you'll click the check mark and we'll go to extrude. Now we asked about this in the beginning of class. You'll click on the snail shell itself, but this time you're going to select new instead of add, because add is just going to add this to the part that already exists. And you'll notice it's going to turn a different color as well. So what you'll want to do in this case is actually select up to face, and you'll select this face, and it'll go to that face completely flush with it. You can also click on a second end position, up to face again, and click on the other face of your snail. And that's how you can create a shell with the exact same thickness as your snail. Then once you click on the check mark, you should have a full shell that you will be able to customize and make spooky. So with that, there are two really useful tools that are going to help you with sketches. Well, actually three. It's going to be the pattern tool, the mirror tool, and the center line. And I'm going to go through all three of those right now. So I want you all to start by clicking on the side of your snail, and I want you to click on sketch. And then, just orient your view so that you're facing that snail side head on. So we're going to start by creating holes in the bottom of the snail to put our axles and wheels through. So I could just draw out 3 holes, make sure they're all linear with each other, make sure they're all the same radius, et cetera, et cetera. I'm lazy. I don't want to do that. So we're going to do something a little bit different first. We're going to click on this line tool, but now I want you to go all the way over here next to that intersect button we had. And I want you to click on construction. And once we do that, we're going to click on this line on the left and drag it out to wherever you want. It doesn't have to be horizontal, but you want to go to this line on the right. And you'll notice that this line is dashed. What that means is this line is part of your sketch, but it's not going to extrude. You're basically telling the CAD software, this is a reference line. This is not a real line. Do not extrude this. This is just a reference. So we could dimension this line to be exactly the horizontal distance between this and this, or we could go to our relations tree right over here, and we could click on that drop down arrow and go to horizontal. So now when we click on this line, it turns horizontal. I'm going to show that one more time. Oh, yes. All right, I'll come over in a second. To show that one more time, you click on the center line. Sorry, you click on the line. You click on construction. Go from one side to the other, whatever dimension you want. And then you go to your drop-down tree, select horizontal, and click on the line. You'll notice that now that we have this line, we need to dimension it. So we're going to dimension it to be, let's call it maybe, oh, wait a minute, why is it doing that? That's not what I asked it to do. I'm going to Control Z that. I'm going to drag my line a little bit up just so that it's more obvious. And I'm going to go point to point, this point to that point. And let's go about half an inch out. Let's do that. All right. And now we are going to be drawing our circles for the holes on this line. So I'm going to start by creating one circle and just clicking on the line and going out. And the reason we're doing this is now we only have to define the diameter of the circle and its position relative to one of the endpoints. So we're going to create this circle to be half an inch big. I'm going to show you one other thing that I've been noticing with a few of you. It's not a problem. It's actually a great learning opportunity. So I'm going to delete this line real quick. So let's say I didn't really touch these two endpoints right here, and I just sort of like that. Let me just turn that into a construction line. Okay. So let's say for whatever reason, it's not letting me touch this line. One thing I can do is go to this little tree right here. This is going to be a really useful tree for you. I'm going to click coincident and I'll click on the point and the line and they're touching now. So I'm going to do that one more time over here. You go to your tree and you select coincident. You click on the point and what you want it to touch, and they're touching now. So now I can just sort of drag this along however I want, but it will be coincident to that line. And this tree is also where you can select horizontal and make that line horizontal. So the reason I'm emphasizing this tree is because in CAD, we often like to work with relations rather than dimensions, because that is a better reflection of your design intent. Maybe I have a line that might be half an inch long or an inch long, but it needs to be horizontal. I can put in a horizontal relation, and no matter what dimension I make it, it will stay horizontal. So we're going to be going into that a bit more today. So, so we're only going to be using one circle for our pattern, but I will briefly show you the, what's it called? I will briefly show you the concentric relation just to show you what it does. So again, we're going to create a circle. Make sure it's on this construction line and make sure it's not like snapping to or touching anything. You want to make sure it's kind of like loose with how big you have it. And I'm going to dimension this circle to be maybe just half an inch. Now, this next part for circle dimensions, I want you to be careful, and I'll show you why. With circles in Onshape specifically, if I just click out here and then click on this line, it will define the dimension either tangent or just sort of parallel to that line. And you might actually end up doing something like this, where you're defining not the center of the circle to the end, but the like outermost point of the circle to the end. So I really strongly advise that unless that dimension between the radius of the circle outward is what matters, that you define the center of the circle to whatever endpoint you have. And in this case, I want to make it, let's go 1.5 inches out. All right, so from here, you should have one circle that is half an inch big and whatever horizontal dimension makes sense to you from the endpoint of the snail. And again, we are going to be adding multiple holes, but for now, I just want you to have this. Hi, what's up? Of course. All right, And again, I will be sending a recording of this out. So the important thing for the circle is you don't snap it to anything and you put it on the line so that when I dimension this, I can make this 1/2 inch big and I can dimension it from point to point. Otherwise you end up with this problem. So again, we want to go point, point, and make that 1.5 inches. I got some purple kind of going on with my wrist. Yeah, so again, for emphasis, point to point. Make sure you're going from the center. Yeah. And again, your dimensions are going to be a bit different from mine if it makes more sense that way. So if you're not following the dimensions exactly, that's okay. What matters to me is that you're learning how to do this. So with that, it's time to cut out some holes for our axles. So we're going to click on that check mark and we're going to go back to that extrude tool that we love. And we're going to click on this hole and we're going to say remove. So just a quick question. If I want to go all the way through the snail and I don't want to put the dimension of the snail in, what button can I click on? Through all. Perfect. And I'm going to rotate my view just to make sure. And yes, it is going all the way through. Click on that check mark. And you're probably wondering, Tamara, that's one hole. I thought you said we were doing 3. You are correct. We're doing 3. So I'm going to click on this tool right here. This is linear pattern. And you're going to notice something like this in the sketch tools as well, but I'm going to do it here. So now you have all these options. We're going to click on feature pattern. And I'm going to click on this hole that I just made. And now it's going to ask me for a direction because this is a linear pattern. So I'll click on this horizontal line down here to indicate I want to go horizontally. Ah, whoops, I clicked on extrude 4, my bad. And I'm going to click on this line. And ooh, I clicked on extrude 1. See, see, even I kind of mess up on this sometimes. So features pattern, click on the hole. And yeah, you'll notice the second hole popped up, but it popped up the wrong way. Interesting. The reason for that is I can click on this opposite direction line, and now it's going in the other direction. And I can also click on the instance count and add a third. For the distance, I'm going to make these about 2 inches apart. And you'll notice that there are now 3 holes 2 inches apart. Again, you can modify this as well if you want. For now, I'm just going to do it this way. And now I have 3 holes going through the center. All right, everyone. So we are actually right about out of time. That's okay. I'm going to show you again how to do this linear pattern, and then I'll briefly show you how to make other things as well. So I'm going to click on the X. I'm going to walk you through it one more time. I'm going to click on linear pattern. I am going to select feature pattern at the top because we're not patterning apart. Features to pattern, make sure you're hovering over the hole. Extrude 4, make sure you click on this bottom side to go with the direction. We want the distance to be 2 inches apart, and we want this to go in the opposite direction. We want 3 instances, and then you click the check mark to apply it. Now then, we can also create mirrors if we want, and the whole idea is you don't have to follow along. I'm just going to show you and send it in the video. For the mirror tool, you'll select mirror, and you'll kind of do the same thing. Feature mirror, features to mirror, and then in this case, you want to select a plane. In this case, it's not going to do anything visible because you already went all the way through your snail. But if you select the right plane, then it'll just sort of mirror that feature onto the other side. So if we didn't have holes all the way through, it would mirror them onto the other side. So I guess your homework is going to be that, here, I'll just show it really, really quickly because it is quick. So we're going to create the wheels now very, very quickly. So it's literally just going to be, we're just going to sketch on this side of the snail. And then for the circle, I want you to create one in the center of this, go all the way out, click on the center, and go Well, actually, we do have that tool we use where you just click on the center, and then you did mention the outside and make that 1.5 inches. We only need one wheel because we'll be assembling it next week. And then if you click on the check mark, you'll be able to extrude that wheel. And we'll create it as new. Make sure that both sides and your entire plane is selected. And we'll make that 1/2 inch. So just a 1/2 inch thick wheel that's 1.5 inches in diameter with a 1/2 inch hole through the middle. So I guess because we are out of time now, and because I unfortunately do still have class coming up, your homework is going to be to create this wheel and the axle that is going through it. The axle is just going to be a 1/2 inch diameter and however thick you want it to be so that it's going through a wheel on either side. So let's see. If the snail is 3 inches and each wheel is 1/2 inch thick, I think you want your axle to be about 4 inches. So I'll send it out in the email as well. Again, I want you to try to make your snails spooky as well. And I guess as bonus, if you have time, I also want you to try to make eyes. They can literally just be, here, just to show you mine for reference. The eyes can literally just be kind of sticks going through holes in the snail. You can just have a circle or something for the eye itself. Just do a rough approximation of this. I think as a warm-up next week, we'll work on the eyes as well. But again, all I'm looking for is the axle, completed wheels based on what I just showed you, and some level of spookification to the snail. We will be assembling next week. And that, actually, you know what? I'm going to say it now. I'm going to stop recording. Okay. All right, everyone. I just wanted to share a follow-up to the session we had today. I'm going to show you how to do the mirror tool, and I'm also going to show you how to do a revolve, since you can do that for pretty much any round surface. So I'm going to start with the mirror tool. Let's cut some eye holes out for Mr. Snail here. I am going to cut the eye holes out onto this top surface. So I'm going to select it and hit sketch. And I'm going to go head on. Again, you can use the view cube, you can right select it. And I'm going to do that whole thing we did earlier with the construction line. So I'm going to say line, construction, and I'm going to go right about here and go this way. And I am going to dimension that out to be about, let's make it 1/2 inch. I do a lot of ming and umming, I think. Let's do a circle now. Oh dear. Circle. You know the routine, just click on the center line, drag it out. And from there, we are going to dimension that to be, let's do 0.5 inches again. I feel like I'm using 0.5 inches a lot. Let's do it one more time, perhaps. No, let's do 0.75 inches this time. There we go. So I could make this circle twice, but I want to show you the mirror tool, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to select sketch 6 and I'm going to say extrude. Let's rotate our view a little bit. We actually want to remove that, and we want to remove, let's actually do 2 inches. Actually, no, 1.5 inches. And we'll hit the check mark. Now, to use the mirror tool, you're going to be doing kind of something similar to the pattern tool. So I'm going to select this icon right here. It's next to linear pattern, and I'm going to select mirror. And again, we don't want to do a part mirror. We're going to do a feature mirror. And the feature we want to mirror is extrude 6. And now we have to select the plane on which we're going to mirror this feature. And we want to mirror it to the other side. So we're going to select the right plane, and it'll create the exact same feature right there with the check mark, and you're good to go. So now I want to show you the revolve tool. So in this case, I'm going to start by extruding a little stalk for the eye. And I feel that you can do this on your own, but let's just go through it anyhow. So as a reminder for today, we can just project that circle by clicking on the use project/convert. Let's convert that. And in this case, that's really all we have to do. And we're going to extrude that out by Oh, hold on, we need to select it. We're gonna extrude that out by, let's call it 3 inches. That way it's nice and half supported. That's always good. And we're gonna click the check mark. Okay, so check mark is selected. And now we're actually going to create the roundness of the eye by revolving this. So I'm going to be sketching on this surface. Let's go normal 2 again. And in this case, because I want to do an eye that's bigger than the stock, I'm going to start from the center and drag out to about here. And let's have it be about 1 inch big. And now one of the things about the revolve tool is you actually need an axis of revolution. So I'm going to click on the line tool and I am just going to go, let's just go from here to there. So you'll notice that it kind of snapped. Here, I'm going to show that again. So you'll notice that when I hovered on the center, it kind of snapped and started doing this horizontal vertical line. So that's one way you can make your lines vertical. Another thing you can do is, of course, just sort of take your line, go like that anywhere through. And then I can select this point and this line, make it coincident. And then I can drop down, use vertical, click on the line, and there you go. So either way, you have a line. So now instead of clicking extrude, I'm going to click revolve. All right, we've had a couple of oopsie doopsies. I'm going to start re-recording this bit. So once you have your sketch, you're going to go to revolve and you're going to say add in this case because we're merging it to the stock, which I am now realizing is wrong. I'll show you how to fix that. So we can't just select the entire sketch because then it's kind of overlap on itself and we don't want that. So instead what we're going to do is we're only going to select the inner parts of the sketch. And I do want to emphasize that you need to select the inner part as well. Otherwise you're going to have a hollow eye and that is actually going to cause problems down the line, I think. So we're gonna hit the check mark and let me show you what happens if you accidentally merge this and add it instead of making it its own thing. What you can do is select extrude 7, which is the eye stalk in my case, and I'm going to edit that so that it is new instead of add. And now this eyeball seems to have become its own part, which is fine because we can go in there, right? We can go to revolve 1, we can edit that, and we can have it merge with part 4, and now they're connected to each other. All right, so maybe you are interested in having part of the eye be nice and flattened out. And that is something to consider. Flat eyes are nice so that you can like add a pupil or something. So here is one thing we can do. You'll notice that the distance between the eye and the front plane of the snail is something. So we can actually create a sketch on this surface and have it cut out of the eye. So let me show you how we're going to do that. We are going to select sketch and we are going to click on this front plane on the snail. And we are going to use the convert tool again, right here. And we're also going to have this selected, the construction, and we're going to click on that. That'll give us the center and it'll give us this line right here. We actually don't care too much about the line. That deletes the center. So I get to show you again, construction, use, and that. So in this case, we don't actually care too much about these endpoints, but just to make things a little bit better, we're going to say coincidence, make this point coincident to that line, make this point coincident to that line, and now we're fine. And you'll also notice that this little sketch 9 shows up because we are sketching relative to that area, so that's fine. So now I'm going to do a center point circle and I am going to click in the center and drag out. Ignore my Discord, that's just one of my study groups. And I'm going to dimension that out to be, say, actually, nah, I'm going to show you something else. I'm going to show you what happens if I make this arc coincident to this one. They become the same size. alternatively, I could select the equal constraint and select those two arcs, and now they're equal to each other. It's a nice little cheat. So anyways, now that I have that selected, I am going to exit the sketch, and let's see what happens if I remove this. And let's have it remove. We don't want to remove it all the way, do we? I don't think so. I think right about here is a nice place to remove it to. You get this nice flat surface. And the merge scope is going to be this eye socket right here. And all the merge scope is doing is saying that the cut is going to be part of this part 4 right here. And I'm going to hit the check mark. And now you have a little flat face for your eye to go. Obviously, this isn't how snail eyes actually look, but you know, we're making a robo snail. We're making it for fun. Oh, one more thing, by the way. You'll notice you now have part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, and that's a little confusing, right? Watch this. I'm going to right click part 1 and I'm going to say rename. I'm going to call it snail body, or just snail bod, I guess. And now this is labeled snail bod. And let's say you don't want your snail bod to be blue. I can right click it and I can say edit appearance, and I can pick a new color for my snail bod. Look at that. I can click on green. I can customize a color, use a mixer if I want. But yeah, that's a nice way to sort of customize your snail. You can even select different faces if you want. Like, let's select the eye. Let's edit appearance. And in this case, actually, I'll leave you to explore the appearance mixer yourself. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to show you. I guess one other thing of note would be that you can also do a circular pattern. So you could try doing a pattern on your snail. Another thing that might be of note is that you'll notice I'm only making one eye and one wheel. That's because in the assembly, we'll be able to make multiple instances of these individual parts. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much all I wanted to show you. Have a wonderful evening.